Welcome, everyone. This is the Bennington Select Board meeting of Monday, October 23rd. We are in the third floor of the fire facility. I have a cough drop in my mouth, which is making it hard to speak. And I am Jeannie Jenkins, and I'm really happy to see you here tonight. I have the pleasure of chairing this board, and I'd like to ask my fellow board members to introduce themselves, starting with Sarah.
Yes, good evening, Sarah Perrin.
Hi, I'm Gary Corey.
Good evening, I'm Jim Carroll.
Hi, Tom Haley.
I'm Jean Connor.
I'm Ed Woods.
Thank you all very much. And also with us tonight, we have our town manager, Stu Bird. We have Nancy Lively, who takes excellent minutes at every meeting. And Josh Boucher, who very faithfully records this live and also for rebroadcast on TV. All right. Better? All right. So, we will start this evening, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Jim?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Jim. Let's see. And Tom, would you please read the vision statement that guides our work?
I certainly will. Bennington is a welcoming, engaged, inclusive, resilient community where everyone, regardless of identity, shares in our vitality and benefits from an outstanding quality of life.
Thank you very much. All right, next up is the consent agenda for the purposes of discussion. Could I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I have one question for clarification. Under minutes from last meeting, line number 76 during public comment, the topic was labeled as the Benhai petition, and I believe that that is incorrectly labeled. The petition was regarding the sale of 124 Pleasant Street, and that's how we've referred to it in other pieces of documentation. I believe that should be updated to read the petition on the sale of the 124 Pleasant Street building.
Thank you. And I have a question. Sarah was going to ask you this before, but didn't get a chance to. On the brush pile fees, my memory was that you abstained from that.
I sent in my clarifications.
Say again?
I sent in my clarifications.
Oh, okay, so you did abstain. Okay. All right, so anything else? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, no abstentions. Great, thank you very much. All right, now we are going to public comment. As you all know, the rules for public comment are written at the on our website and also written and available at the podium. It's an opportunity for residents to share information or make announcements that benefit the community at large. Topics should not be related to an agenda item. Comments should be 3 minutes or less. You're required to state your real name and town of residence. You need sharing comments, announcements, and concerns are encouraged rather than asking questions. Public comment is not a time for discussion. And if a topic requires much discussion, the item will be considered as an agenda item at a future meeting. So, given that, I will start, let's see, with Sam Rustino. He has questions about the parking lot at School Street.
Good evening. I didn't hear my voice. I don't think it's on. It is. Okay, sorry. I'm just used to being vocal and I don't hear my voice to pick it up. 300 School Street. I can't help not thinking about that certain area of town with all the improvements in other parts of town. The part I'm talking about is diagonally from Sacred Heart School and back to the old Grand Union. That place has been fenced in, it's been overgrown. I don't even know who owns it. Can the town do something with that, make it into parking either for Sacred Heart Church or municipal parking or put a berm in there. I know they put that fencing in there to stop the traffic going from School Street to North Street. Other items that I have to address, the cold weather has kicked in, not real bitter cold, but I'm calling for a code blue advisory tonight. It's going to be down to 30 degrees. The town of Bennington has no stance on calling a code blue. Me being a citizen of Bennington, I'm calling it. So there are homeless people out there, and I'm making people be aware.
Housing is on the agenda, so again, that is why you need to write down what you're going to be talking about, because that would be better held, okay?
Okay, is that on the agenda item tonight? I wasn't realized
The
to
agenda,
do
there are
that. Okay.
copies of the
All
agenda
right,
in the back of the room.
I'm continuing on. It's nice to read in the paper that the Bennington Farmers Market is getting back into Bennington. They're having their holiday markets in the month of November and December back at the First Baptist Church. If you haven't gone to the Southwest Vermont Medical Center and looked at the renovations, you should go. We should be very proud of our hospital at the amount of work that was being done in such a short time without no closing of our hospital. As you know, we had a paving process going on through the summer months into early fall. We've got a new one, which is on Route 7A in Harwood Hill. That was a last-minute entry, and that's another gridlock that people have to be aware of. Harvest Fest was great. It was nice to see a parking problem on a Saturday afternoon. I continue to, hopefully, people show up at events like that. The 25th, which is Wednesday here, we are in Appalachian Trail town. There's a meeting that's taking place right here, I believe at 6 o'clock at this location. When we get in the months of November, taxes are due November 11th, and on November 15th, we start our parking ban from 2 to 6 a.m. in the morning. I'm going out on a new venture. It's called the Repair Cafe in downtown Bennington. I'm currently working with Better Bennington Corporation, and people are wondering, well, what's a Repair Cafe? Other towns have adopted this. It's basically if you bring a lamp to rewire
Sam, you have 30
piece of
seconds.
furniture to...
I have 30 seconds.
I have 30 seconds, thank you. A piece of furniture to glue, sharpen scissors or knives, or sew a zipper. So hopefully that'll come about and bring people downtown Bennington. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mary Morrissey on trash and town project. Maybe.
Mary Morrissey, Bennington. I hate to bring back up the trash or brush discussion and getting into the weeds, but when I was up at the landfill the other day, the person at the drive-through had indicated that it's confusing what the costs are. I believe Casella is saying that for the bags of garbage, or of I guess I want to say greens or weeds that people bring to the landfill, you had indicated, Stuart, that I guess if they had 2 bags of that, it wouldn't cost anything. And it was their understanding from Casella that they're going to look to charge everyone for what they bring. And she said it's a little confusing, and like I said, not to bring this topic up again, but she wondered if there could be a clarification.
Well, I did get a call from the transfer station clarifying the size of or the amount of brush being brought in. There is no charge for leaves or grass clippings or any of that. We don't charge for that. And that's not what a brush is. So
But
if
I'm not-
that was the confusion, then the individual at the transfer station really is not paying attention. But we did clarify the size of the load that would not be charged. Otherwise, everybody will be charged for bringing in brush.
Right, but the way she indicated is it was, Casella was more or less saying everyone will pay to bring even leaves or whatever to it. So if that could just be clarified.
Will do.
Okay, the other
Thank you.
topic I have is I was at a meeting last week on Thursday at Bennington College, and it was Project Alliance, and I was probably, I don't want to say disappointed, but I was disappointed not to see the town manager or the police department there, who have raised in the past at meetings a couple of questions. The different nonprofit groups were there to talk about the private-public project that may happen up at the Autumn Inn. And I do believe that should be a discussion, a public hearing, that folks can talk if they have concerns about it. Also, that neighborhood should be able to have a discussion as well. You're going to be moving 40 apartments.
Excuse me, Mary, you've got 30 seconds. Just your heads up.
Okay. Well, this is an important topic because I've had a lot of neighbors up in that area saying, when is the town going to talk about it? They hear rumblings of different things happening, and that has not happened. And they have, some of the folks from the group that is planning, and again, it may be a perfectly wonderful project, but people need to hear what it is because they already have reached out to the state for funding. And Jeannie was there to hear, the discussion, but
think
Jim was there.
You weren't there? No.
And Jim was there, but Jim indicated that he wasn't aware of some of what was going on there either. So if this discussion is being had, and I know I'm past my time, I apologize, because the March or April deadline will be upon us as far as the the voucher program ending.
So, Mary, can I stop you because you are over your over your 3 minutes?
I'm sure I am.
This feels like this is a discussion. I was at that meeting, and the town has been at the table. But this is a private project, and this is something that Project Alliance, this should be a discussion within Project Alliance. The town will do their pieces of it, but this is a private project, so therefore, we can't hold a public hearing on a private project. Project Alliance is taking the lead on this, and that's wonderful. There is a very responsive developer, and I think that is the place where these conversations should be. My understanding is that both the chief and the lieutenant were at training. They had let me know that they were not going to be able to be at Project Alliance. And part of the reason I go there is to make sure that the town is represented, and I go to every meeting. This is really a Project Alliance discussion to be had. And there are several people in the room that were privy to that conversation as well. We can't hold a public hearing on a private development.
But
we're happy to make the firehouse available if Project Alliance wants to do that, but it needs to go back to Project Alliance.
My last words will be, and I know I'm over my time, God forbid we should be a minute over our time, but it keeps being said public-private, and that's where it gets, that's what was said at the meeting. Well, that was what was said at
Then High is a public-private partnership.
And they are getting grant money from the state, which is public funding.
Then the state can hold that hearing, but the state, and some of that money will run through the town in the same way that the money runs through the town for any number of nonprofits in this community. That's, the funds just run through the town. All right, so those of you that are members of Project Alliance, I guess take heed. Sounds like it should be on our next agenda. Nancy White, Town Survey.
Nancy White, Bennington. I don't recall the Select Board having a public discussion about the terms of the town survey before it went out.
The what? The
What?
terms?
The terms of the survey. I read online today that people from other towns, including the region, and I don't even know where the region is, are being told to take part in our local town survey. I raised concerns about this last year. If people don't live in Bennington, they're not sharing the costs in our town budget. Why should people in other towns be telling those of us who live here how they want to spend our money and the direction our town is being pushed? So who made the direction, or who made the decision to put it out online that everybody in the region should take part in our local survey?
Again, this is a time for public comment. I will say, I believe this is the third time
Well,
we've
if you
done the
didn't-
survey, and we set the survey up this way initially because, as we've stated over and over again, Bennington is the largest town in the county, and we host a number of social service organizations. We host a recreation center that people that are not members of Bennington pay 80% more to belong to than members of Bennington community. We have Meals on Wheels, which is a county-wide organization. We host, many people come from Hoosick Falls or Sunderland or Arlington to shop at
And I will
Hannaford or
remind
Price
you-
Chopper or Walmart. Therefore, it is county, but you were asked what community you belong to.
Are any of you on the select board paid by the region, or do we in Bennington pay for you?
I don't even have any idea what relevance that has. When you fill out the survey, it asks you where you live.
But it defeats the purpose because it isn't a
So again, this is
local...
not a time for debate. If you've made your...
You're right, it's not a time to debate. No other town in Bennington County helps us fund the senior building or senior center. No other town in Bennington County helps us pay for the rec center and pool. Now, people from other towns, their money used to come, and anybody who paid, the money used to come back to our town budget. Now it all disappears with the YMCA. So as you say, all the people in other towns, again, their money isn't coming to our town budget like it used to. So what is the good of doing a town survey if everybody in the county and beyond can fill it out? If they aren't helping us pay our bills, why should they have a say?
If I could just make a comment and hopefully clear
Please,
this
go
up.
right ahead.
We gather that information on that survey. We know where the data is coming from. It's important that we gather data from outside of Bennington where people are relying on our services, but we also know that what data is coming from Bennington versus what data is not coming from Bennington. I just wanted to say that to clarify.
I did the survey, and it starts off on the beginning, it's anonymous. You have no idea where it's coming from. Well, again...
Nancy, this is not a discussion.
Well,
Is there anything else you would like to say?
We're an independent town.
Jack, you cannot interject. Sorry. You're not allowed.
Well, I didn't know the
No,
county...
this is public comment, and the purpose of public comment is to share information for the good of all. So the information you shared is that you do not believe that people outside of Bennington should be allowed to fill out the survey.
Well, it's a fact. If you don't
That's your
live in
statement,
Bennington,
and
you're
that's
not
fine.
paying the town budget.
Can we move on?
Nancy, your time is up. Thank you.
Well, who's paying for Stu and Shannon and Dan?
Nancy,
the county
your time is
it?
up. Thank you.
Your time is up. Please sit down.
Again.
Stu, call, I want you to call an officer now, please. Thank you. Next up is Donald Washam to speak on open discussion. It's timely.
Well, I've said this 100 times before, but maybe one day you'll change the agenda. The topics that are going to be addressed are not discussed. Therefore, for me to discuss open discussion or talk about a topic doesn't happen. So I would, I'm not going to say anything, I just, if something comes up later on, if I'm allowed, I'll come back up and discuss on it. But I wish that this was set up in a different format.
So, Donald, I think as we talked about before, this first part is for items that are not on the agenda. And then
Okay.
as each agenda item comes up, then there's time to discuss that agenda item. So this is something, if there was something else.
Oh, okay.
Like you wanted to paint the firehouse
No.
green, then this would be a time to say, I think the firehouse would be more attractive in green,
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So, yeah, please feel free to have conversation if something else comes up. Ned Perkins, warrants.
Yes, Ned Perkins, Bennington. I noticed on the warrants that you just approved that there were 3 line items which were marked for the Ben High redevelopment project. And I'm a little confused because it was my understanding that there's 0 municipal tax dollars going to be used for this. And my other understanding is that a year ago on October 24th, 2022, the Select Board committed $2 million of ARPA funding to the project, but was quite specific at that point that they were not authorizing expending that money. So I'm just wondering what pot this money's coming out of.
Well, do you want to respond, or?
If they're an ARPA project, they would still pass through the warrant system, but they are taken out of a fund, a reserve fund that has only ARPA money in it. I'm not too sure which 2 you were talking about, but.
And Ned, we did approve spending some funds toward the pre-development work at Ben High, but it still has to show up on the warrants, and then it gets paid out of ARPA funds rather than taxpayer funds, if that makes sense.
Just because, I'm just reading from the minutes
Yeah, it's
from
not
back that Mr. Haley clarified we're committing to the funding but not expending it. So is that true or not?
We did approve.
Where was that authorized?
Here.
Could you tell me what minutes?
You could find it on the website,
I looked through just because I looked through all the development website very carefully, and I didn't see anything listed there, so.
Stu, is this?
Maybe I'm missing it, but.
Is this, should Ned call you tomorrow so you can?
Yes,
you can
so he can
tell
do
it.
that.
I don't remember what meeting we approved pre-development. I think Bruce might have been on the board when we approved pre-development. It's been quite a while. You made the motion? Okay, it's been a little while. Okay, but yeah, so it still shows up here, but in order to spend any of the ARPA funds, we have allocated very specific amounts of ARPA funds to be spent on Ben High and the skate park project, and so those will show up on the warrants.
Okay, but if somebody could point me to that meeting where you have minutes that show.
Can you call Stu in the morning?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, super. Thank you. Thank you for asking that question. I'm glad you're reading the warrants. Okay, so next up, we have, I'm very happy to say, Adam Sanzik is here from the Agency of Human Services to give a perspective from the agency, and also, I think, more of a statewide look at what's... I'm sorry, Jack, please sit down.
Well, usually at the end of the question...
Jack, please sit down.
Well, you're kind of limiting my ability to air my concerns.
Jack, please sit down.
I just want to make sure that we're on the same alignment that you are saying that I can't give my concerns to the town of Bennington during public comment. I just want to make sure that is acknowledged publicly.
Yes, it is, as long as you follow the rules, which you do
I'm not
not.
trying to follow rules. I changed my name.
Jack, please sit down. Thank you. So, Adam, you're giving us a perspective from the agency, and also, I think there were some follow-up questions that people had about just how motel voucher program worked and oversight of that. So, I will turn the floor over to you. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks so much, everyone. I appreciate your time today. I did want to start off, there were some questions that came up last month, which I'll address. I may need a reminder around a couple of those because I did although I did review the full. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So a couple of the questions that came up that I was able to follow up on, but if there's any that I missed, please feel free to remind me as we kind of go through this. I did want to start off with an update on the numbers for the June cohort. That's folks currently in the hotels within Bennington County. The numbers reflect 124 households for Bennington County total. Of those households, 89 are in the June cohort. I wanted to make sure that folks were clear on the June cohort are for households that will be approved through the end of March if they are in compliance with Act 81, which was the legislative initiative, now an act, that they are actively engaging with a community partner or provider to get their any barriers that they may have in order to transition from transitional housing, temporary housing, into permanent housing. That can include services around recovery, around mental health, around just getting their basic health needs met, really addressing any issues that they may have that may be a barrier to employment or other things that would help them self-sustain in permanent housing. So as I said, we have 124 households total in Bennington County. 35 are currently in the emergency housing section, which is just specifically either the 28 or 84 days where they meet category, where that looks, it could either be something catastrophic that happened, a fire or something else, a flood that allowed them their 84 days, or they meet a different criteria where they have a child under the age of 12, or other specific criteria. And I can give an overview of that. I can get a link to that if folks are interested in more specific information around what that eligibility criteria looks like. Of those households, 76 households are in the town of Bennington, and that includes 83 adults and 32 children. Outside of that, so we're talking about either Pownall or Manchester, we're looking at the difference between the 124. So regardless, they're sharing the same services across the board. Even if they're in Manchester, as most of us know, they're still coming to Bennington County for a majority of their services within the participating agencies. I did want to get into the state response with regards to Act 81 and what the Agency of Human Services is responsible for with active engagement and getting into the hotels and doing some effective outreach. Within the last week, we've been able to hire 2 staff. One of those staff is a panel manager that will be looking at the participation for each of these households, making sure that they're actively engaged. That active engagement is an initial screening, which determines the overall need of the household. It is a shared care plan, which is a more comprehensive overview of not just identifying those needs, but actively engaging them with service providers, again, whether it's related to substance use or mental health or other health needs that need to be addressed, making sure that these 2 staff are making those connections and engaging those households to make sure that they're supported in every way possible. The 2 new hires actually will be starting this week, so I'm happy to report that we'll be seeing Margay on Thursday, and we're going to be doing some additional engagement with the current outreach team here in Bennington County. The one thing that we had really hoped for is that we were going to get a local social worker and case manager. Unfortunately, with this temp agency, that's difficult. So I say that because I'd really like for them to have a better understanding of the services in this community and already have those connections. That's not going to happen, so what we're going to need to do is making sure that we're relying on Margay and the rest of the outreach team to make those connections so that we can do that quickly, because we basically got 5 months to actively engage these individuals in these households to make sure that we can provide as much support as possible so that the barriers that they present, that they can move beyond those. So I think that's really important. I do have more information on what that shared care plan and screening looks like. If anybody's interested, I'm happy to share that. Have a couple PDFs that I can provide on that if you're interested in those specifics. The other key element of this is that we also get them screened for coordinated entry. For those folks that aren't familiar with coordinated entry in the HMIS system, what it does is it prioritizes, it's a master list that prioritizes housing supports for families in need. So if they're not on that list, they're not being prioritized for Section 8 vouchers. They're not being prioritized for public housing. The good news is within Bennington County, we've got about 68% of that population that's currently screened. The rest of them are not, and that's problematic. It's doubly problematic because it's a population that hasn't had to engage for almost 3 years. And so we went from this being voluntary to now it's mandated per Act 81. So it's a real different approach that we're going to need to take with these households and actively engaging them and engaging them in an effective way so they're willing to be supported. So I think that's a really big thing that we're going to be focusing on as a team, making sure that we're well connected to other agencies and creating those relationships so that we can do this work, because 5 to 6 months isn't that long a period of time. That's really the bulk of kind of what I wanted to talk about under Act 81. I did want to address the cold weather exception. Typically, somebody had alluded to it getting colder outside. The expectation within economic services is typically we do have cold weather exception that comes into play, and that is the opportunity for us to house folks once it gets below a specific temperature. I think it's 23 and below with a specific, I know enough just to be dangerous on this one, because it also depends on the humidity or the amount of accumulation of water in the air or something like that. There's a formula, and I'm happy to present that. But it typically starts around November 15th, but no guarantees because it is weather specific. So I'll get more information on that. I'm happy to share that with Jeannie and the group so that you have a sense of when that kicks in for folks that are homeless that then have the opportunity during cold weather to not be left out in the cold. The other thing that I did want to address was around specifically the report of some of the hotels having substandard facilities and not providing basic needs that we're paying for. And I think that's something that has been an ongoing problem over the last couple years. Hotel owners, we've been at max capacity since the pandemic. It's been very problematic. We don't have enough hotels. We don't have enough shelters in order to meet capacity, specifically during the pandemic, to avoid everybody being in a congregate setting to where it was a health risk. So we've had to really follow up with a lot of these hotels and remind them that the basic needs, we need to follow through with them. So I have been in touch with the Director of Economic Services General Assistance Program. He's reaching out directly to the hotels to engage them. The advantage of having both the panel manager and the case manager coming into the hotels is they're also able to talk to the folks that are in the hotels and get that communication, because oftentimes they're afraid to say anything because they don't want to get kicked out. So I did want to just also let folks know that this isn't the first time that AHS has had staff in the hotels. The CCHRT was active for almost a year and a half during the pandemic, doing this same outreach with chronic care nurses, vocational rehabilitation, economic services division, and other partners doing this work. So it's been ongoing. Unfortunately, there was a 2 or 3 month lag because of the way that funding was presented, and we using a temp agency to get back up to full staff. So I'm excited and happy at the staff that we have. They're here for the right reasons. They're going to do the right work, and it's going to clarify it's going to identify a lot of the ongoing needs within the hotel population, and we'll be able to support that in a very different way over the next 5 months. So the other thing that I did want to address So anyway, we did follow up with 2 of the hotels. We reminded them of their obligation to provide the basic needs. It shouldn't be something that we're reminding folks of, but we've had to do it more than once. And I'll have to tell you, it's not just Bennington County that we're struggling with that around. And they receive enough money that they should be providing what they provide for anybody else.
Adam, can you just give us a better idea of what those expectations are from the motel? What should they be providing?
The same as if you or I walked in, honestly, and I think that's where it's been problematic. And so this is where I think I've struggled a little bit, because I've been in the hotels for the last 3 years. I've been on the ground providing services and supports during the pandemic. I've been through 3 of the counties and actively engaged with the hotels in 3 counties. I've seen a lot of damage happen in those hotels. I've seen a lot of destruction happen in those hotels. I've seen to where managers and owners have gone out of their way to do everything possible to keep those folks, secure and safe during a period of time that you didn't want them out on the streets, that you didn't want them in congregate shelters during a pandemic. That being said, I've also seen folks that have taken advantage of the system. And I think that the issue is there hasn't been the capacity to check on every hotel every day. It's just not within the capacity of the agency. It's not in the capacity within the towns. It's not within the capacity of the Department of Health. It goes beyond that. And so that being said, that piece of communication is really important, because, again, I'll go back to a lot of the clients in the hotels, the households are afraid to speak up. And so we have to have eyes on. I've had eyes on. I've seen it. When eyes are on, things go fairly well. It's this when you step away that it can be problematic. So the other thing that I did want to check in around was I think expectations around the general. So Rutland County is currently working with Rutland Town with their inspectors, fire, Department of Health, town manager as well, and they are doing inspections of the hotels currently, and that's something that they've been coordinating, I think, now for about 5 or 6 months. I think there's an awareness. I'm sorry.
You said they are?
They are. They are. So that's something that I know of as a best practice, is something that other towns are looking into, because the agency only has so much leverage with regards to what we can and can't affect with the hotels. We're a bit between a rock and a hard place with regards to capacity, because the hotels know that we need the rooms. So if the hotels know that we need the rooms, and we're pushing back to that we need to maintain this level of cleanliness and making sure that there's not holes in the walls and things of that nature, they also understand that there's not a lot of other places to go right now. So I wanted to clarify that, because I think that's an important part of the conversation, but shouldn't stop communities from that level of accountability. And my understanding is that's what Rutland Town and Rutland City are doing right now. So.
And has it maintained consistency? Can you speak to that?
Since they've been doing they've been doing those, yes, it's shifted significantly with regards to not so much expectations, but just accountability. And that's what I've heard from the mayor anecdotally.
And who were the agencies that were directly involved? Was it the health department?
So it was the Department of Health. They've got the city inspector. I'm not going to say this correctly with regards to their titles, but it's both city and town inspectors, fire inspectors. So it's basically anybody that has jurisdiction over those properties is reviewing them.
Mm-hmm. Question for Stu. Could we have code enforcement come and take a look at these?
We already do. We already do.
I can read you. So Jonas Spivak actually spoke to this, and what he said was, and he couldn't be here tonight, the good news is that the town of Bennington handles all complaints on behalf of the state for any health and safety concerns in the town of Bennington. For North Bennington and Old Bennington, the town handles health complaints, but not safety. So our position right now has been to be, if somebody complains, we will
go.
respond.
Yes, and we have.
But we also haven't had a conversation with the health department, correct? I mean,
Well, we have two health officers, prime health officer, deputy health officer. They also happen to be our code enforcement officers, building codes and zoning codes. So we're involved.
they're super busy, but I'm just wondering if maybe it makes sense to also look at, they also do fire inspection, right? So they.
Yes.
Yeah, so the only thing, so looking at the Department of Health for possible help is one thing we could do.
One thing we could do.
Can I ask a couple,
Can we interrupt you, Adam? Because we're already doing that.
Since we're on that topic.
Yeah, so Ed and then Mary.
So, Adam, I heard you say that we need the space, we need those rooms. So there's really no negative outcome for the motel owner to not provide what we think we're contracted to provide, right?
So I think it does go back to the more eyes on and the more folks that are going in there and seeing what's happening. I do think that it affects that. But you're right. It is a capacity issue. It's an issue of, well, if you close down one of these, even the smaller hotels, what the impact is going to be short-term for that. And that's the rock and the hard place. You're correct.
It's a real rock and hard place. Let me just share with you from another perspective. It is really difficult to take care of property such as a motel when people are living in it full-time. They're not built, designed, outfitted for that.
Yeah.
So to have people there all the time, it's very hard to properly clean, let alone do any repairs and maintenance. So I wonder if that shouldn't be looked at in such a way that, one day a week, everybody out from this time to that time, so that, housekeeping and maintenance can go in. I happen to own a motel, and we're not in this program, but there's no way that people could live there and have the property be maintained.
And it goes a step further where they won't allow them in the rooms, that they refuse to allow them in the rooms. And the way that the contract was brought for the cohort, it looks really different, and I think there's different, it's not your typical, they've agreed to a specific contract, and within that contract, it doesn't stipulate that. It doesn't get into that level of specificity, which is problematic.
So maybe it should be, if this program is to continue for any length of time, maybe it should be considered.
Yeah.
And then the last question I have for you is, you mentioned the June cohort with 89 households in it. Where are the other folks in terms of timing?
It's either within the 28 or the 84 days under general assistance.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
So everybody is being addressed, everybody who's being housed now is being addressed either in that one cohort, or they're on a different program with an emergency need?
That's correct.
Thank you.
And the outreach team that I was discussing earlier, as well as the two temp staff that are going to be on with us for 5 months, are going to be focused on the entire population. It's not going to be limited to just the cohort, although that's where the funding came from, is to make sure that we're addressing and supporting Act 81 the way that it was meant to be supported.
Thank you, Adam.
Yep.
Mary, and if you would like, there is a table here for people to sit down and not have to go back and forth, because Adam has to move away if you use the podium.
Just be a quick question. When we had the discussion and Margay had told us that their teams were going into the hotel motels and that they were disgusting, I did go to the governor's office as well as the agency, and they did say, but I didn't quite hear that in what you were saying. They said a couple of weeks ago that they would be coming back and would send me, I wanted a copy, and the town should obviously have a copy, to have the understanding of the state-town connection as to how to do this. We as a state cannot put a program in place and not have cleanliness for the people we're serving and at the cost we're serving. So have you received anything from them yet?
Not at this point, but that doesn't mean it's not happening, and that I'm just potentially unaware of it based on
So Adam, you have to go to, the
Oh,
Cat TV
sorry.
can't pick it. That's why we have 2 microphones.
So at this point, I haven't been given any additional information around there, but that doesn't mean that it's not happening, and I'm just not aware of it, and that the expectation, they often do their rounds with the state, and that could be anybody from the Secretary's office to economic services, regional managers that would be tasked with that.
I will check back in tomorrow with the folks to see where that's at, because the towns can't do it themselves, and the state should have been providing something to certainly cover this issue. It's not appropriate, but thank you.
Mary, was that explained to you as sort of a general guideline of how it could be done, or how it's being done in other communities?
I think when COVID came on board, and just as Adam had described, I know even in Montpelier, a number of the motels that folks are housed at have become very difficult, and the cleanliness issues and everything else. And, you know, we as a state cannot put programs into place and have this happen.
So even though maybe some guidelines are coming down from the state
Right,
to
and
help us address
that
this.
is what they indicated, that there would be that state and kind of possible town connection to
Yep.
be able to do this.
I would be very interested in
That
learning
would,
more
that would be
about
helpful,
that.
because if the understanding is that towns should actually be going out to motels, then there's a funding stream that comes along with that.
Right,
to be
tell
able to
us how.
hire the-
Right, and
Yeah.
The people, and I think as Margay indicated a month ago when you spoke, it's very difficult for a team that's going into a motel room to meet with a family, to build trust, and then turn around and say, you know, they need to be out of this motel room because it's filthy. I mean, so it is very hard to have the group that you're trying to build trust, be the one that rats you out, sort of, yeah.
Right. And just like Ed said, it's very difficult to have a family move out to go in to clean or do any maintenance or that. So this does have to be coordinated in order to do the right thing, and it's long overdue.
Thank you very much for your work, Mary. Yes, Clark, please, could you sit at this table? Thank you. It'll make life easier.
Clark Adams, Bennington resident. Couple of questions here. Adam, this organization you're with, the Agency for Human Services, is that a governmental office, or is it a consortium of nonprofits?
State of Vermont.
State of Vermont, okay. So, kind of sliding into a previous issue that was kind of shot down, this Project Alliance and the Autumn Hill project that you said is a private entity. I was at that meeting, and maybe I'm a little obtuse, but I got the distinct impression that that project did in fact involve local government and state entities.
It involves Project Alliance. Well, as you know, Project Alliance is a coalition of social service organizations, the town, legislators, PD as part of the town, health department, I mean, you name it, sort of everybody coming to the table looking at issues from different perspectives. But the Autumn Inn project is a project that Hale Resources is putting together. It is not a town project. The fact the town is at the table is to make sure that if there are any permitting issues that Hale Resources needs to know about, or any other issues, that you're getting timely information. So the fact that they hope they get state funding, many projects get state funding, that doesn't make that a public-private partnership.
Again, that's what I'm trying to clarify, since I sat in the room and that's what came across to me.
Yep.
So basically, when the rubber hits the road, you guys are just interested observers. You're not part of the decision-making process.
Correct.
Using that logic.
Correct.
I'm concerned on that issue in the sense that this is a issue that I'm reading is a crises here, but now you're telling me, in fact, we're just kind of stand on the sidelines and let things evolve. We're not being proactive. We're just there.
Clark, that's not what we said.
I didn't say, I said, that's mine.
Okay.
You're telling me you're not part of the decision-making process. You're there as observers. Am I correct in that?
No, we are there as part of Project Alliance. A project, one of the projects, one of the many projects. The outreach project is a project of Project Alliance, and that requires. So, I mean, I think the distinction that we're trying to make is that if a private developer wants to do a project, the town certainly can have an opinion about it, but we're not in a position of making a decision any more than I'm in a position, or this board is in a position, to decide whether the project on the Tuttle lot is something we like or not, or whether the Christian college in town is can convert those motels. It's, you know, the town has a role when development happens, and we have Dan Monks, who is involved in much of that development. And if they're looking for state money, Shannon may be involved because the town can work as a pass-through. So we're not disinterested from that perspective, but we are not the developer. So we will not make the decision on whether the project goes forward or not.
Okay. So in terms of zoning or even impacts on the neighborhood, I understand what Mary's saying, that should I have a house or a residence near there and all of a sudden X number of people with significant social issues, everything from substance abuse to psychiatric issues, is now my neighbor, I would hope, and correct me if I'm wrong, that my representatives, in fact, were at the table and I could come to you and say, something here I'm not comfortable with, I'd like you to address my concerns.
Oh, so Clark, it would go to Planning Commission, and Dan, maybe it's worth, you're not, look up. I know, I mean, so, I know, I mean, I'm just.
I don't know enough about the project.
I know. Yeah, so it could end up going to the Planning Commission, but I mean, if you can just talk generally about, it's not the select board that would actually go to.
Well, the governmental entities of this town, how's that?
So, yeah, if you can speak generally to that.
So if a projects typically require permits, whether they're building or zoning, and there's two types of processes. There's an administrative process for lesser projects, and then for the larger, more impactful projects, they go through a board hearing process through the Development Review Board. This board does not have the authority to make those permitting decisions. It's strictly within either the building inspector, if it's a building code issue, or the Development Review Board, if it's an issue that rises to the level of board review for land use issues. So they're purposely separate, and DRB, the Development Review Board, is a quasi-judicial board. They will make their decisions based on whether or not the project complies with the regulations that are in place, not whether or not they like the project or don't like the project. It's whether or not they meet the regulations.
So in other words, the administration/bureaucracy or officiousness trumps members of the community's concerns. We sat down, it meets the rules, boom, we're going to go forward with it.
That's what laws are for, yes.
Right. So to digress, it makes me think of solar farms that meet the rules but don't go forward. But yeah, that's, I have others, but I'm holding the meeting up. Have a good day.
Thank you, Clark. Sam. All right, okay, and then Martha, and then let's let Adam get back to sharing some more information.
Sam Racino, Bennington, Vermont. For the record, let the public know that we have an officer in the room. Question, if it's a private issue, the discussion that took place at the Bennington College, along with our governor, that's the state of Vermont. And we've got a private amenity of a project that's going along with this, which is a Project Alliance. We're getting conflicting reports of what's private and what's state. So, you know, you have your rules and regulations of who can act and who can come in and who cannot come in, and how the state can get involved in everything with the legality of the red tape. That doesn't solve the problem of this homelessness. Now, we know the governor has got a project of, I forgot what it was saying, to make things calm in our state and for housing. That's how Project Alliance came about, from what I read. It's a double-edged sword. Now we've got our hotels and motels that are housing homeless, and now these hotels are probably have been damaged.
Is there a question in there? Because this is
I'm getting a question in there.
Okay. Please get to the question.
So now we're going to have these hotels and motels for housing, and we don't have any lodging. And when people want to come here to visit Vermont, you can't stay here because there's very little limit lodging. I know not all hotel owners are a part of this.
Sam, is there a question?
Okay. So now my next question is, you had a statement about what constitutes code blue. I pulled it up. It's a temperature of 32 degrees, including the wind chill. And we don't wait until winter months. So you're trying to tell me that the homeless that are out there, we can't do anything until November? Is that your statement that you made? November 15th?
So that's for cold weather exception. There's other programs that are also available.
My statement of 32 degrees, including the wind chill.
Sam, your question was asked and answered.
Well, are you going by that?
Sam, there are other programs that are available all year round, including during sweltering heat. We're talking right now about cold weather
I'm talking about
exception.
cold. It's going to get down to 30 degrees tonight.
Sam, question asked and answered.
I got a question. This Project Alliance, is it open to the public? These meetings?
Yes, it is. And in
where are
fact,
they publicized? Is it on the website?
Sam, we can talk about this later.
Is it on the website?
This is off topic.
It's not on the website.
Sam, off topic. Thank you.
I'm treated like a mushroom. I want it on the website.
It's not a town project.
Bingo, you answered my question.
So, all right, let's see, Martha, and then we're going, okay, so Adam, why don't you continue? Do you have more to say?
Excuse me, I have a question.
As I said, after Martha, we were going to go back and let Adam talk a little bit more, because he's already over time and is only, and we stopped to take a few questions, which turned into a bigger discussion than we expected.
So the last thing that I did want to address is if you're interested in the current availability of funding to look up the Vermont Housing Budget and Investment Report. It'll give an overview of the funding, especially for a lot of the projects that are obviously needed for this community. So that was the last thing I just wanted to bring up before I leave.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
So I know, Ned, you had originally had a question. Do you still have one? So Ned, then Martha, and then Nancy.
I've been involved with homeless people sleeping on the porch of our church and trying to reach out to them and get them going in the right direction. Who can we reach out to? I mean, we've talked to Project Alliance. They haven't really, they said, yeah, it's a big problem. Is there a person that we can call at your agency that would come and engage with these individuals?
So that's actually part of the outreach project that I was talking to you about that Margay and the Turning Point supports. So that would definitely be a point of contact to let folks know.
So who would we call?
Margay, do we have a number or how do we?
Because we did call Turning Point. Somebody came over to church and said, yeah, it's a big problem.
Yes, now I remember what you're talking about. We did go.
Margay, you need to come up if you're going to speak, because Cat TV can't film you otherwise. Dadgummit.
In terms of what to do about folks who are sleeping outside and who to call, you certainly can call Turning Point. We are spearheading the outreach. We're not the only ones involved. Again, that outreach team is multidisciplinary. It includes United Counseling Service, Syringe Services, BCCH, PAVE, GBICS. We all play a role in that. But the unfortunate part is there are going to be folks who we go and approach and try to engage with who are not interested, right? So if they refuse to engage with us, that's kind of where we need to leave it. And that's the best we can do. So not everyone wants to accept help, and as we've talked about a lot of times, this has a lot to do with trust. So it may not be that they don't want help, it's that they don't trust people right off the bat, and so it takes time. We don't just get to swoop in and move someone, right? That doesn't work. So please reach out. We do want to follow up. We are concerned, but we have to recognize there's a limitation to what we can expect from people, right? Not everyone is going to comply.
Thank you very much. Ned, does that answer your question? Okay. Martha?
Martha Mackey, Bennington resident. I'm also going to identify myself as a community organizer with Vermont Interfaith Action. I don't normally state that because I'm often here just as a private citizen, but given that this does connect a lot with the work that I'm doing with my organization, I just thought I'd put that out there. So I know Ed asked a little bit about this, but can you just clarify the 31 households that were they already moved out of the motels, the ones that are not in the June cohort?
So the 35 that identified that are in emergency housing are ones that came after the cohort was established that met eligibility criteria under emergency housing general assistance. That was either the 28 or 84 days. So that would have either fallen under the category of catastrophic, which would have met 84 days, or that they had, I'm sorry, I wish I knew the rules better, but it's somebody, it's age dependent. So I think it's somebody over 65, disability, a family with children under the age of 6, I believe. But I can get that clarified. So that's the population we're talking about, very limited, looking to transition them as soon as possible. Not like we're not trying to transition everybody as soon as possible.
So they're in some sort of emergency housing other than the motel program?
That's correct.
Okay.
They're in the hotels as well, just to clarify though. They come under a different eligibility criteria.
Okay, that was exact answer to my question. Can you also expand a little bit on this cold weather exception? And is this, again, also just like taking people back into motels under these cold, the extremities?
So it's a good question, because really what it comes down to is it's also based on the current capacity shelter statewide. So the priority is obviously to get them in some type of established congregate shelter. And if that congregate shelter isn't available and we're under cold weather exception, then they would defer to the hotels. But the idea that, and this has been a larger conversation around the advantage of congregate shelter versus a hotel, and the fact that they've got supports and staffing there that they don't have in the hotels, we're going to prioritize the congregate shelter first.
Yeah. And how do you, so, we don't always have a lot of preparation for extreme weather. How do you ensure that these people know where to go? And, how are you reaching out to this population?
So some of it is the outreach that we were talking about with Margay and that team. I think it's also if they're coming into economic services for another program, that we're making sure that they're aware of that. It is fairly well known. It's something that the state has been, as long as I've been with the state, maybe at least 5 years, maybe longer than that we've been implementing that as a countermeasure to make sure that folks are safe during extreme cold weather situations. So it's all of the community partners are aware of it. We make sure that we get out notices to relevant agencies that are working with the homeless. So it's multi-stages to make sure that we're comprehensive in getting that information out.
Okay, that was helpful clarification. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Nancy?
Who is the law enforcement group tied to the Alliance? Did I hear that it was the Sheriff's Department?
No, you didn't.
It's the Bennington Police Department?
Yes.
And you're saying there's no public hearings required for the Autumn Inn?
No, they're part of Project Alliance. They're not part of the development team for the
I'm sorry?
Autumn Inn.
I mean, how
Project Alliance is a much bigger program that has a number of programs with.
But isn't this a pilot project being done in Bennington County that the state is doing?
No.
Can I take a stab at this?
Yeah, we are. This is loosely developed off of the Rutland Project, whatever they call it.
They call it Project Vision, and actually, these groups were meeting long before they took on the title of Project Alliance to deal with initially the opioid crisis, and the housing crisis now has become part of that attempt to deal with people who are vulnerable, people who have addiction problems, people
Well, we've
who are
been trying to
unhoused.
deal with this in Bennington for over 20 years as the only town with a homeless shelter.
We are not the only town with a homeless shelter.
In Bennington County, what
In
other
Bennington
town has a,
County, yes.
what other town in Bennington
In
County?
Bennington County, yes.
Oh, well, that's what I'm saying.
But I think Stu is in the middle of speaking when you interrupted him.
Yeah, but what's your question, Nancy?
Well, we opened a second shelter, and we were told that the first shelter was going to open. If the public had known we were going to have 3 homeless shelters at one time, you would have heard feedback. We were told it was 2. I don't understand how a group of what are basically Bennington County nonprofits want to turn a motel into housing for 45 homeless families, and you don't think the public should have a say.
Nancy, can I interrupt, Nancy? Your question was whether or not it would need it to go through zoning. It will if it becomes an actual project. It will go through normal zoning channels. Just like if you wanted to turn your house into a B&B, it would go through normal zoning channels. Dan, am I right? I think that puts the question to rest.
And those
But
are
I
public
already
hearings.
know that the zoning, all the ZBA is going to do is say, okay, they've checked the marks. This is going to impact our local
Nancy,
schools.
this can only be questions. It cannot
Okay.
be grandstanding.
Who's going to pay for the
Honestly, can't be. And I
increase
think
at-
Stu is trying to say something, if you would stop interrupting him.
Well, it goes on and on, Nancy. The requirements that under the program that Adam and the Project Alliance is trying to handle is that the folks who are involved have to commit a portion of their income to housing and to their own benefit. They have to be engaged with agencies that can help them address the issues that have been identified as their problems. Most of those people are Bennington residents or people who live in this region who are in Bennington and unhoused or having addiction problems. And you can say that we shouldn't address them because they don't pay taxes, but there are a lot of people in town that live
I'm
here
not
that
saying
don't
that
pay
they don't
taxes.
address taxes. We're the only town in the county that has been stepping up for 20-plus years.
And that's
This is
because
going
we
to
are a good
impact our
community.
local schools.
That's because we are a good community. We have the capacity to do so. We have the people who are willing to do so. That's why it is.
And Nancy, this is not a referendum on whether you like homeless shelters or anything else. If you have a question for Adam, please ask.
Sure, this is not a private project. This is not being paid for privately.
Nancy, this is not a time to debate anything.
Jeannie, it's being paid for tax dollars,
Nancy?
with tax dollars. Am I not correct?
It's a private developer. Nancy, if you have questions, I suggest...
Well, I would hope that you've all been reading what's going on in Middlebury.
Nancy, this is off topic. If you have a question for Adam, please ask it.
Sure.
Otherwise, please sit down.
If something happens at the shelter, like what happened at the shelter in Brattleboro, who will be held accountable?
When something happens at a shelter, the Bennington Police Department is called and they respond.
And the individual that performs the act that causes the problem is the one that's held accountable.
Well, again, we're the only town financially that will be bearing the burden. None of the other towns will have any impact. This is why it's so unfair to Bennington.
Well,
Nancy, again, if you have a question,
yeah.
please ask it. This is
Sure.
not a time for statements.
So it's going to impact the rescue squad budget.
I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. What will impact?
You
the
don't know
rescue
what the
squad?
taxpayers pay for in Bennington?
What are you even talking about?
Okay, if people from the county are going to be brought to Bennington.
For what?
To be in the shelter. I'm talking about this proposed homeless shelter.
This is not a shelter. So the Autumn Inn project is to convert a motel into permanent housing. It has nothing to do with a shelter at all.
Is it
End
going
of
to-
conversation.
Is it only going to be for
Nancy,
homeless
this is not
people?
the appropriate forum for an
Well,
Autumn Inn discussion.
I hope
But it is
Bennington
not a
residents speak
shelter
out.
in the slightest. It is not a shelter. Okay? It is permanent housing.
Last question. If a family doesn't follow the rules and they're
In what?
asked to, If they're staying at the Autumn Inn in this...
No, Autumn Inn is out of the question. If you are talking about motel voucher program, Adam can address it. The Autumn Inn is an idea at this point, and it will be permanent housing, and it will go by any other apartment. Do you have a question about motel vouchers?
No questions.
Thank you. All right. Goodness gracious. Anybody else have a question? Jack Hurley, come on up. State your name and where you live, and if you do not state your name, you will not be allowed to speak.
So just to make sure I'm
Jack?
I just want, no. You used my legal name, you say use your real name. So if you're going to dox someone like that and have them give their private information publicly, at least use the term legal name. If you're going to say real name, what does that mean when you say real name?
I'll say legal name, Jack.
So from this day forward, it's going to say legal name. You can call me anything. You can call me. You can call me anything you want. I really don't care.
I'm going to.
But my question for you is, if someone is in the voucher program and do you mind? I'm trying to ask my question. Please do.
You need to state your name before you can speak. This is a public forum.
My name is Ripper. I live in the town of Ligma. That's my town of residency. My question for you, though.
Sit down, please.
We're out of order. I'm going to ask you to leave.
I gave you a name. I gave you a town of residency.
Officer, can you help this individual?
Please help us, officer.
Either sit down or leave.
I'm just trying to ask a question. What am I not following? Am I not given a name?
You have to give your name before you can ask your
I did give a name. I said my name is Ripper. I live in the town of Ligma. What's the difference?
Sit down. You are
How is it not my name? How do you know what my name is?
Okay, we're going to take a 2-minute break. Officer, can you help Jack while we are in recess?
I didn't even know that. I gave my name. I gave their what did I do wrong? Explain to me what I did wrong. I gave a name. Did I or not give a name? So they have the right to deny me from being able to ask questions, which is what the form is for, to ask questions to me. But they say they are representing the will of the people. They say, do you have any questions? And I did identify myself. They said their rules is a real name. It doesn't say legal name. Well, I said, give me your real name. It has to be any name. Please enlighten these colleagues. This is perfectly legal.
All right. No. We could all do jumping jacks for like 2 seconds. Okay. Okay, I'm waiting for Jean to come back. All right. So, guys, thank you for your patience. Adam needed to leave. We didn't get to give him a thank you. I think if you have any follow-up questions, please email us and let us know, and we will follow up with Adam. Any materials that he alluded to that you would like to see, we can provide. Next up is the Energy Committee update, and I'm very happy to welcome Bill Karras, who is the chair of the Energy Committee, and Bruce Lee Clark, who is back in as a member of the Energy Committee. So the floor is yours.
Thanks for having us this evening. We're presenting just an update from our last year of work, really through the spring of 2023, kind of looking back where we've been since we were here last. And then following those points, kind of taking stock of what we've done more recently and where we're headed in the months to come. You'll find much of our work is centered around community outreach, partnering with existing organizations, and connecting these groups together to kind of further their leverage and impact, to further their impact. I guess more specifically, the bullet points I want to hit on from the last year of work include probably first, we applied for and were awarded Municipal Energy Resilience Program Capacity Building Mini Grant, which is a $4,000 grant that is run through the town. And is dedicated to community outreach regarding energy opportunities, efficiencies, programs. We have until December 31st, 2026 to spend these funds. So we really are not rushing and taking stock and considering how best to implement this money. But we do expect it probably to head towards community outreach surrounding existing under prescribed weatherization programs. And to that end, the Energy Committee has done a limited amount of tabling and outreach at events in town, including the Healthy Kids Day, where they partnered with window dressers to distribute these weatherization programs from Brock, from NeighborWorks and Efficiency Vermont, and window dressers, and did some similar work at the North Bennington annual meeting. The Energy Committee also co-sponsored the Earth Day panel on energy and climate change. I participated on the panel alongside Paul Dansereau, Building Inspector, Callie Fishburne, the Energy Coordinator at BCRC, and Jim Sullivan, the former Director at BCRC. And there was a fair turnout at the library, and it was a pretty nice event. And then connecting a couple more organizations, window dressers, while doing outreach and intake for their own program, worked on behalf of Brock to take contacts of individuals who were interested in more broader weatherization of their homes. Of the 42 window dresser customers, 11 gave the window dressers teams permission to share their contacts with Brock, and one of those individuals was eligible and willing to go through with that program, and so there was one additional home weatherized through this partnership, and that's a significant. I think every home that goes through that program is of significance. And then looking forward, again, we're focused and setting the track to understand how best to use the mini grant. We really want to improve and kind of leverage these various outreach channels we have, including our space on the town website, our connection through Cat TV, who actually filmed their first set at the window dressers build a couple weeks ago, and that will be, I suppose, edited and aired closer to the time that window dressers ramps up again for intake, to kind of generate interest for next year's window dressers. We'll continue some tabling events, and we've just begun to engage with realtors to help connect them to these energy efficiency resources that are available and bring those to their clients. More recently, a member of the Energy Committee has attended the Community Resilience Forum on September 23rd, and their participation, and I guess that forum and our members' participation helped set the agenda for the Bennington Conservation District. A couple items that fell out of that were a resilient energy microgrid and power generation consideration, and also a K through 12 community resilience curriculum. And so that forum was not entirely focused on energy, but there were some peripheral peripheral pieces that I think do fall into our space. A few months ago at one of our Energy Committee meetings, a community member brought an idea to the committee that they had fielded for a project of their own, but it turned out to be not viable for this project, but shared this resource the town has with us, and that is using Morgan Spring as an open loop geothermal heat pump opportunity. And Morgan Springs, you might know, I think flows adjacent to the rec center, where a significant amount of energy is consumed to heat the space, cool the space, heat the pool, and dehumidify that space as well. And all of which could be met through through a system leveraging the geothermal opportunity of that spring. The Energy Committee shared this opportunity and met with Dan Monks and Paul Dansereau, and they've been able to work that into their municipal energy resilience program's assessment that was already queued up for the rec center, but now there is an added focus of this resource that might not have been captured by that specific assessment and vendor. The Energy Committee is now connecting with the Agency of Natural Resources to understand what kind of environmental barriers there may be with utilizing this water source. And we have a letter out to the agency, but no response yet.
Actually, we have had a response.
Great.
Very non-committal at this point, just saying, I now see what you asked and we'll be getting back in touch with you. So, is it a response? Yes. Is it an answer? No.
But it is a step forward, and we're committed to seeing that through and understanding the viability of that opportunity. And finally, this is even further looking, but something that is on our radar is the implementation of the Clean Heat Standard, which is still coalescing, forming, at the state level, and we suspect, if kind of the ongoings are any indication of its confusion, we expect there will be confusion when it rolls out, and this could be an opportunity for the Energy Committee to to do more outreach and help community members understand and navigate this new program. We don't know what it will look like. No one does at this point, but we suspect there will be questions. And we think that kind of keeping a close eye on the development of this program, working to build our outreach capacity, and simultaneously helping as many folks weatherize their home as possible will kind of help mitigate the challenges that this Clean Heat Standard might invoke. So, thanks, and I'm happy to answer questions.
I mean, so I've only gotten to go to 2 meetings, but Gary got to attend last year, and yeah, I mean, I've been very impressed with the level of energy and just of personal interest and the expertise of the group. So it's a strong Energy Committee, which is really nice. Questions? No? How about from the community? Sam, come on up.
Sam Restino, Bennington, Vermont. Quick question. You said you've got grant money for the Energy Committee, correct? With the new proposal of getting Vermonters off fossil fuels, is there any initiative for Vermonters locally in Bennington County of helping them out, converting their heating system over from fossil fuel to renewable fuels? Have you brought that into an agenda item?
Let's see. The Clean Heat Standard has not has not been fully fleshed out. So that is not kind of where the impetus is today. There is support from Efficiency Vermont to help with those conversions. There are rebates and incentives for customers to make that transition. And there's a lot of money coming through the Inflation Reduction Act that can also help individuals convert their homes from fossil fuels to renewable fuels, to heat pumps. And even there's even money that we believe is available to help with upgrading your electric infrastructure. So oftentimes you will need to add a new panel or upgrade your service from 100 amps to 200 amps to install an electrified heating system. And the IRA does have money cut out for that space, for that.
I can relate to the electrical. I'll bring it back in a little bit. Chargers, car chargers. I mean, we don't have enough of them here in Bennington. And I mean, are you looking to, with the town, to put them in? There again, we're getting into private amenities. We can't put them in Hannaford Plaza. We can't put them in Monument Plaza. We can put them in our municipal parking lots, though. But I think we need to get more car chargers into town if we're going to be a welcoming and diverse town with our mission statement.
We would agree. The discussion around whether the chicken or the egg, whether you need more chargers or you need more plug-in vehicles is interesting. We have investigated that a little bit. We have we haven't developed a map, but we've investigated a map. We've also pulled data from a number of the municipal-owned charging stations to understand at what rate they are being used, how frequently they are occupied. I don't have that data, at the front of my mind, but it is something we've looked at. And I believe the hospital just installed a large bank of them.
There's 5 or 6 of them up there. In the last couple of years, have you seen the increase of your data of people using the car chargers in Bennington?
Definitely. It spiked. I think we only looked at 2 or 3 years of data, but I want to say it almost doubled the rate. The usage rate increased significantly over the short time span that we looked at.
Okay, thank you, because we are the metropolis of crossroads. We do get people from Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, the surrounding areas, and they do have these vehicles, and we need to accommodate those folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Other questions? Nancy?
Let me just add, Sam, when it becomes really clear as to what resources are going to be available to individuals to transfer from fossil fuel to renewables, you can count on the Energy Committee to be all over that information so that we can get it out to everybody. Right. It's just not available at the moment.
That'll be part of the community outreach.
That will absolutely be part of what we do.
Yes.
I was concerned when I learned last year that the Bennington taxpayers are getting charged to provide the electricity so that people can charge their electric vehicles for free in our town lot on Pleasant Street right behind the town office. Are you aware of any other towns or cities in Vermont that are charging their taxpayers so that people can basically get a free ride?
I know of a number of municipally owned charging stations that do not charge customers for charging. And what I've learned or heard about these allegedly free charging stations is that the value to the owner is very limited for charging because the capital cost to install the fee mechanism and the service for folks to connect to and then pay really makes for a very long payback. So let's say it's an additional $10,000 to add that credit card reader or Wi-Fi enabling little beeper that you can hold your phone up to so that it can dip from your debit card to pay for your charge. And if that car charger is only, then you have to upcharge your customers to make that money back, and you end up, that payback period is very long and has not been worth it for many municipalities that have installed these car chargers without kind of the fee structure associated with them.
And what about businesses? Are they all paying out of their budget so everybody can charge for free?
Many, I'd say. If there's folks that drive electric and plug in, they probably know of a number of businesses where you can go get
There's some that will give you a certain amount of time for free, and if you're there over a certain amount of time, then they charge you a very nominal amount.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? No. Well, thank you. That was great. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Next up is to schedule a vote on the petition to convey the .61 acres at 124 Pleasant Street, the senior center building, to Ben High in partial consideration of the acquisition of real estate property. Stu, I will hand that to you.
Yes, the petition ties or attempts to tie the transfer of 124 Pleasant Street to the Ben High project. That is not what we will be asking the voters to vote on. The petition, reason for petition is to challenge the town's authority to sell the property, convey the property at 124 Pleasant Street. So the petition wording will most likely reflect that simple question. Do you or shall the town of Bennington convey or sell the property at 124 Pleasant Street? It'll be along those lines because that is what the statute provides. The town may dispose of property unless it is petitioned otherwise, and this petition has been successful. So we will hold that question. As the petition notes, it can be at a special meeting or at the annual town meeting. As you know, I am recommending the annual town meeting because then there is no additional cost to hold another vote separate, and we'll get a much better turnout at town meeting than we will at a special election.
And what you have shared is that it will cost between $2,000 and $6,000 to hold a special election, and we would get a very poor turnout. So
that is correct.
It would cost the taxpayers money for not a great
yeah, I think it's a question worthy of the town meeting since it has been petitioned, and I would ask the board to make a motion to vote to place that on the annual town meeting ballot.
So moved.
Second?
Second for discussion.
Discussion, please.
So for two items, one is a better turnout at annual meeting, and the other is, I think I understand that it will have no impact on the timing of the Ben High redevelopment project.
That is correct. That is our position. We are working, obviously, this is a $28 million project. This property was valued at $400,000 as part of the project. That is, although it is a large amount of money, it is a relatively small amount of money in a $28 million project. So we are working with the developers to address that shortfall, and we believe we will have a solution for that relatively quickly.
Excellent, thank you.
And that building will be empty because Meals on Wheels and the senior center will relocate to the Ben High project. So it will be a building that we have deferred maintenance on and no clear use for.
That is correct.
Yeah, I think it's in my opinion that we place it on the town meeting ballot, just because I think it's in the belief of, in the spirit of the petition as well.
Okay, and that is the motion that is on the table. All right. So any other discussion?
Can I have a question?
Yes.
Sam Rustino, Bennington, Vermont. There's a lot of articles that we vote on in Bennington. Sometimes the language is not all that clear. I myself have a hard enough time understanding the language and how it's read, whether to vote yes or no. How are you going to make that to the average citizen of Bennington that does vote or is going to vote clear as a bell or clear as crystal to make them understand how are they going to vote or what is the meaning of that article? That's going to be a very hard article to write come March.
I think it's going to be actually fairly straightforward because
It'll be
it's
very
going to be,
straightforward.
should the town convey this, sell this building or not? Yes or no? Yeah,
It always has to be in a positive, and it's a yes or no vote.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It's just the idea of
It will
making
be
the general
very
public,
straightforward and very short.
making the general public understand between now and March. That's all.
Yeah, I agree, Sam. And I think a lot of it is the legal language that is required, particularly like on fiscal language, but yeah, we will try and do that. All right, so any other discussion? Are we ready to vote? Nancy?
I want to make sure the public understands.
Nancy, I want you to be very, very careful here because you need to ask if you have a question or something to clarify.
This is about ARPA money, that I think it's fair.
No, no, that's not the question. The question right now is scheduling the vote on the petition.
Okay.
So if it relates to scheduling the vote on the petition, you are welcome to ask your question. Otherwise, this is not grandstanding.
Where will this be placed on the ballot? Will this be placed at the very top so that the public will see it and it won't be buried in the middle so that there's a chance someone might overlook it?
Actually, Nancy, that's a very good question, and we'll do our best to bury it in the middle. No. This most likely will be the first question following the questions on the town ballot. Will be the next question would most likely be this question. And then we move into the agency questions.
Okay. And I just want to make sure the select board isn't going to have the public discussions that many of the voters who signed the petition asked for?
Well, it will be a town meeting.
Yeah, the ballot items will be discussed at the floor meeting.
Okay. And are you going to say convey or sell on the
The
question?
petition used the term convey. The statute uses the term, I think, sell. We'll look to the statute to guide us on how that is phrased.
Yeah, because there isn't any selling. We were told we were swapping the building a year and a half ago.
No.
That was the framework of an agreement with the current owner of the Ben High complex. The question that the petition asks is, shall we convey that building? So when we look to the voters, now it's a question of, are we conveying the building or are we selling the building? And the statute will guide us on the language. It'll most likely end up being a question of whether or not we sell the building.
Okay, because I don't find anything on the town website where Chris Gilbert has signed anything saying he's going to pay our town anything for the town senior center building.
The question will not revolve around Chris Gilbert at all. The question will be simply, shall the town sell 124 Pleasant Street? It may be that Chris Gilbert, in the end, if other opportunities present themselves, he may not even be in the picture to buy the building. Somebody else may come along and want to buy it. Because Chris Gilbert is involved in the Ben High project, and this was a part of that involvement. If in fact we find other ways to proceed with the project without this building being sold, we're still going to look to sell it because it won't have a use once the Ben High project is completed.
Okay, but I think it's only fair that the public understands if you're going to wait until March to hold the vote, the public needs to understand when they vote no that all of the ARPA money you've spent on the Ben High, if the project doesn't go forward, we don't get that money back.
The project will go forward.
Well, we'll see.
Nancy, again, you're straying.
I can assure you the project will go forward.
You've withheld the critical information from the public
There is
about...
no critical information being withheld. You need to go to the website. You need to attend the meetings where we actually discuss this, where the experts are here, and you can ask them questions.
Well, none of you were at
We've had five long meetings on
And the Berkshire Y CEO has never been at a secret meeting to take questions.
What? Nancy, you are off topic.
Jeannie, I raised
Nancy,
concerns...
you're off topic. Do you have a question about the scheduled vote on the petition?
Well, sure. Because if the public doesn't understand who's going to...
Scheduled vote.
A couple of months will give me plenty of time to get accurate information out to the public about how unfair this is to the town taxpayers.
Anybody from the public is welcome to go on the website, and if they have any questions after going on the website,
Jeannie, the information
they can call
isn't on there. The critical information is not on there.
Nancy, this is not an appropriate time.
That's fine. I'll get it out on the internet. Accurate information for the people of Bennington to understand.
Please encourage them to go on the website from the town. All right, I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor of putting the question on the town meeting ballot, thank you. Please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, it's unanimous. Thank you. All right, next up, planning grant for the town plan. Dan.
Hello. I'm going to be really, really quick. If you guys have questions, I will take as much time as you want to answer them, but I'm going to try to summarize quickly. I know we're trying to get out of the meeting this evening because we're way over time. So as most of you know and will recall, the Bennington Planning Commission had requested and received your support for a town plan update project, which was proposed in 2 phases. Last year we applied for, with your support, and received a municipal planning grant to begin phase 1. Phase 1 basically consists of a concerted effort to address, to gather information regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion issues. We contracted with the Bennington County Regional Commission to help us with phase 1. They are putting together an outreach plan that we hope to review, and I say we, the Planning Commission hopes to review in November, and over the next succeeding months, BCRC and a DEI consultant, Abundant Sun, which most of you know, the principal in that organization, will be conducting that outreach project. Results from that outreach will be summarized and put into a thematic outline on which to base our revised town plan on. That's phase 1. It's all happening now, and it will happen over the next about a year. So the year after that, we hope to move right into phase 2, which is actually revising the town plan based on the information we gathered in phase 1. And again, once that town plan is drafted, once a draft is completed, again, comprehensive outreach to folks to try to understand whether we've actually captured everything that people are really interested in and concerned about. Hopefully that the town plan has done as well as we'd hope to address those things. That is phase 2, and we are seeking approval from the select board this evening to apply for a municipal grant to fund phase 2. Again, we hope to work with Regional Commission and probably Abundant Sun, but there will be a request for proposal process, so they will be competing with everyone else for phase 2. But that is what I'm here for this evening, is to request that you sign the resolution authorizing the town to submit a municipal planning grant for phase 2 of the town plan project.
Perfect. All right, so for the purposes of discussion, can I have a motion to adopt the attached resolution approving the municipal planning grant application? Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion? Nancy, and then Clark.
Stuart, do you have a copy to circulate? Okay, good, thank you.
I asked the select board well over a year ago to have CAT TV start covering the planning commission meetings so that any Bennington resident who wanted to would have easy access to watch the meetings. You didn't want to do that. I find it strange that you want money to pick and choose who you want to reach out to about the town plan. Second, Dan, don't we have to go out to bid on this?
We already did.
You went out to bid?
Yep, yes, the Bennington County Regional Commission bid on this project and was selected.
So the meeting I was at 4 or 5 months ago, you had already gone out to bid before that? I know
I don't know the timeline, Nancy. I do know that we went out to bid. They submitted a bid with Abundant Sun to do this project. They were selected, and we have a contract with them, and they are working on the project currently.
So the person that you had all hired several months ago, that was done with a bid beforehand?
Yes. We have not. We've worked with BCRC and Abundant Sun to do this project based on their proposal and an ensuing contract.
Okay. Well, no, I just didn't know when you were talking about who you had hired, if it had gone out to bid, because when I talked to Stu a couple of weeks ago, he didn't know about it.
Well, Stu is not involved in the RFP process or the selection. That was the Planning Commission that did that.
Okay. And when are you going to introduce the woman that you've hired to be in charge of this?
So, as I mentioned, we are, BCRC and Abundant Sun have put together, or are putting together, an outreach plan, which will be reviewed by the Planning Commission probably in November. And then they, being Abundant Sun and the Regional Commission, they will implement that outreach plan, and they will be doing all sorts of different and creative things to try to make sure that we get input from as many people, as many types of people, as many types of groups, as many types of perspectives as possible for this project. So that's why we've hired them, to do that work, to not just have a Planning Commission meeting or have a Select Board meeting and hope that people show up. They're going to do a very comprehensive outreach that will have a multi-pronged effort.
I find it interesting when I go to the Planning Commission meetings, and I don't understand why they're not televised, because really a lot about the future of Bennington is being discussed. They're held usually at 3:30 once or twice a month in the back town office. It's hard for most people to get there. Why wouldn't you want the public to have easy access to watch them online or on TV?
That's a budgeting decision. If the town wants to pay for a camera to be in that room, that's perfectly acceptable. I will say that whenever we have hearings where we propose adoption of significant bylaws or ordinances, those are usually held here with a camera, and everyone has the opportunity to see that on CAT TV.
Again, I think by that point it's too late. The public should be able to be involved every step of the way if they choose to.
Yep, and that's why we're having this comprehensive outreach project done for the town
Well, I
plan.
just hope everybody is reached out to equally and fairly in Bennington.
That is the goal of this project, Nancy. That's why we have consultants to help us with that.
Clark?
Although you know who I am, I'll tell you again. I'm Clark Adams, resident of Bennington. So I hear at the beginning of our meetings the town's vision statement, which sounds pretty comprehensive. Now I hear of a need for this DEI survey. Is there something the town is or is not doing based on their vision statement that reflects a need to have this DIE study? And I'm just at a loss. It seems that.
Do you want to explain the role of the town plan?
It's not a DEI study. It is a update of our Bennington town plan, and I know most people have no idea what a town plan is or what it does. So it is the primary policy document that drives land use decisions, economic development decisions, housing decisions, et cetera, that the Select Board makes and that the Planning Commission reviews and the DRB reviews. So it attempts to be a very comprehensive public policy document that addresses all sorts of things, many of them statutorily required, some of them the town chooses to address. So that is the project. Part of that project will be to ensure that we reach out to all folks in the community, including those voices that aren't usually heard, marginalized communities, et cetera. That is the diversity, equity, inclusion part of this project. We'll also be looking at issues to try to through a DEI lens to understand how maybe in the past we haven't taken into account, other people's, specific marginalized groups' needs, et cetera, and that will be reflected, hopefully, in the town plan. All sorts of issues from housing to transportation, all these things are impacted by diversity, equity, inclusion issues, and that's why we have hired BCRC and Abundant Sun to help us first do that outreach, and then to make sure that we hear those voices, and that we address those concerns in the upcoming phase 2 of our town plan development process, where we actually draft the town plan. So it's not a DEI study per se, it's a update of our town plan with the help of a DEI consultant. That is not the only thing we'll be addressing. We'll have to update all sorts of data and facts and figures, as well as to address some of the stuff that may or may not really be impacted by DEI issues, although it does hit a broad spectrum of issues that are addressed in the town plan.
I again can't help but look back to our opening statements on town vision. Makes me wonder how much of that town vision is in fact nothing more than a pro forma blanket statement versus true substance as to how this town operates.
I think that's
And
a really, that's a lovely point, and I do believe that when we came together as a community and put together that town vision, it was a vision. And now what we are doing is saying, okay, let's make sure that our town plan is in line with the vision that we have for how we move forward. So I think it is, in some ways, putting your money where your mouth is. And I think the reason that we share that vision at the beginning of every meeting is to keep it in front of us. But the more our documents reflect our vision, the better, the closer we will be to achieving what we intend.
Yeah.
So it is not empty in the
So
slightest.
I'll add, and Clark, the important thing is the vision was adopted, and now we are going through all portions of our government processes, et cetera, and making sure that that vision is reflected in our documents. So the town plan was adopted well before the vision, and now that the vision has been adopted and we're revising our town plan, we want to make sure that the town plan implements that vision. And that's part of it. That's really the main focus of this project.
Is the 14th Amendment part of this plan, or a document you want to use in your plan?
You're going to have to...
Why do you ask?
Basically, everyone's equal under the law. The synopsis of the 14th Amendment,
Yeah.
equal protection under the law.
Yeah, so why are you asking?
I'm saying, is that a document you want to add to your working papers while you do this?
Well, I'm not certain. I mean, the 14th Amendment applies to government in general. So that's really, the diversity, equity, inclusion issues really do get to the 14th Amendment issues to some extent. So
equal protection under the law. Tribalism and all that stuff is, in my mind, the bane of our existence. And I think we need to look more at us as people and not us as this, and that. And that's my concern, that I think we're sliding into tribalism. Instead of all of us sitting down and share the meal, we're like, well, you should get this piece of the pie, you should get that piece of the pie, that kind of stuff. And that's what my concern about this issue is. And that's why I said we've got our vision statement. You say you've got this process to make sure the way the town operates is in line with that. And I say the number one thing that we need to have involved is the 14th Amendment, because basically no matter what level of government you're functioning, the base document that guides your entire function is the U.S. Constitution. Everything else is superfluous. If you're not using the U.S. Constitution, in my mind, you're illegitimate government.
So Clark, I think we're in agreement on that.
Yeah, I think just
We're in agreement.
Just to respond to that, I think by looking at DEI issues, what you're trying to do is make sure that the people that have historically gotten the lion's share of the benefits of government or protection, that's expanded to include everybody, which I think is the 14th Amendment.
And that's what I'm saying. That's my question. I would hope that the 14th Amendment is a prominent document in your working papers and under consideration.
Thank you.
Absolutely, the principles are reflected in the 14th Amendment, yes.
Any other questions, comments? We ready to vote? We did make a motion, didn't we? a while ago. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, unanimous. Yep.
I am circulating the resolution for
Thank you.
signatures.
All right. Next up, revolving loan proposal.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So I'll try to be brief as well. The reason that I'm here tonight is for you to review a commercial loan fund application from our revolving loan fund. And for those who don't know, the Select Board recently made a new policy after reviewing with town staff and executive session, the application, financial documents that come with that, to vote to approve any commercial loan applications in a public meeting. So that's why we're here tonight. So this application is from 748 Main Street LLC to fund renovations to the Bradford Common Building at 748 Main Street. So that building is outside of our designated downtown. So they are requesting $35,000, and because they're outside of that district, the policy from the revolving loan program is that the interest rate is a fixed rate of 50% of the prime interest rate plus 2 points, not to exceed 7%. So that is a 6.25 interest rate over 10 years. The scope of work is to improve their tenant space so that they can be full of tenants. There are anchor tenants there, Domino's Pizza is one of those, as well as the laundromat. So this work will help them to finish out the other tenant spaces with electrical work, framing and drywall, and also to improve the entire external concrete facade outside and paint it. The collateral on the loan is the second position on the commercial real estate, valued at $372,500. The contingencies from our policy are that all their appropriate permits are obtained, and the insurance that is also required from the town loan policy must be obtained. So the town staff reviewed the application and the supporting documentation, believes that the applicant's request is within the scope of the town's revolving loan program, and we request that the Select Board move to approve the loan as outlined in the attached loan commitment letter, which is also in your packet, and then just outlines those same terms that I described.
Excellent. For the purposes of discussion, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion? No? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Unanimous.
Okay,
Thank you very much, Shannon. All right. Managers report.
I too will be brief. We have no action items tonight. You will note in your packet, and this will be available on the website soon, we have established the budget schedule for the coming year, and agencies that are within the budget, that is generally the two libraries, the Rescue Squad, North Bennington Recreation, and Lake Perrin, will be asked to submit their information for the board by December 1. All other agencies that appear on the ballot will have to submit their information no later than December 8th. Letters will go out to all of the agencies indicating their timing, but for the board's purposes, I hope to have my budget as prepared to you by December 18th. And we then have established work sessions early January to review the budget for inclusion in the March town meeting. So that is in play, and I'm assuming, unless you have serious questions about the schedule, that those letters will be going out to the agencies over the next 2 days. We've already noted earlier in the meeting that the biannual citizen survey is out and available to the public on the web, as well as we have hard copies at the town offices if people don't have access or ready access to a computer. The school zone has been established at South Stream Road. Signs are up. We've been monitoring some of the speed there, and we are finding that the average speed is within the speed limit of 35 miles an hour outside the school zone, 25 within the school zone. So it's having a positive effect at this point. Riverwalk, we are down to the last block between School and Park Street. All the rest of it has been paved and installed. I believe the lighting is underway. Electricians are working on that, or will be soon, and we hope to have that finished prior to the very cold weather. And we continue to work with DEC, or attempt to work with DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, State of Vermont, on the burned-out property at Benmont Avenue. We don't wish to take possession of the building. It is currently considered abandoned. There is no formal owner under the state's view and ours. So we are trying to find a way with state assistance to be able to tear the building down and remove it, or at the very least tear it down and screen it so that it does not continue to be a hazard to adjoining properties. We're very concerned about this freestanding wall and heavy winds and snows in the middle of winter. There are adjoining properties that could be hurt, so we are working. I am working with John Smeltzer, who many of you have known through the PFOA. He is now the Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Environmental Conservation, and he and I have had just a recent phone conversation, and he promises that the state will be in touch with me to try to find a way to do this. Normally, we would take possession of the property, go through an application for grant funds to do it. We don't want to own the property. It's not of any value to us. We just want to get the structure down and secured. So that's where we're at. That's all I have for this evening.
So, and just to follow up on the memo to agencies, you're writing 2 letters, one to the ones that are in the budget, and then a different letter to those that go on the ballot, to make it very clear that it's not just getting some of their materials in, but all of their materials in, and they have to be the right year, they have to be accurate.
Yes.
Accurate information. So, and so you will encourage them to submit it a week early, because you've agreed
Yes, I will. Yes, I will.
Look over it.
Because I'm going to be the one reviewing those applications as they come in, so.
Okay, all right.
I'll need some time to do that.
All right, so this is based on Select Board, really, I think last year was just sort of enough already, the number of agencies that did not get material in on time. Okay. Well, we have a very kind-hearted town manager, and so it dragged on and on. And so what we agreed to last year, what we voted on last year, was to make a hard stop. If you don't have your materials in, then you have to go out and petition. All right, so upcoming agendas. So we have the YMCA and the Department of Health is going to come and talk about the dashboard project next meeting. Anything else we know?
No, that's what we have scheduled for the first meeting in November. And on the long term, the only other thing we have is the Bennington Police Department will be with us on the first meeting in December.
Okay. All right.
And we'll surely have other things come our way.
All right. Hopefully not too many. All right. Any other business? Sarah?
None at this time.
No more business? All right. So we have need of an executive session for personnel. So we will bid you all a good night. Thank you very much for coming. And could I have a motion to go into executive session?
Motion to go into executive session at this time?
All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.